and you really just kept your head down and you were quiet and you got on with it. We were frightened. We just didn't know if we were going to be targeted or whatever. It just was a scary time, I remember that. I was originally born in Belfast, and in 1969 we moved to Newry because of my dad's work. We moved probably what was classed as the predominantly Protestant side of town, and we settled in, from as far as I can remember, very quickly. We moved at the end of August, so it was school time, back to school, into school, and as far as I can remember, after a few months it was as if we'd always been there. Mum didn't want to move initially to Newry because her only memory of Newry was Newry's dirty canal. But Newry was the place we had to go. But the whole family settled in very easily, and you know, it became home, and it was somewhere where we were very happy to live, and we did stay there. There was no thought of us moving back to Belfast or even closer to Belfast. It was home, and it's where we grew up, and where all my childhood memories would be is Newry. Yeah, it was a happy place. Started in primary school, and whilst obviously I knew the troubles were happening and things were going on, in primary school, maybe P5, P6, not terribly sure, my best friend's dad actually was murdered at the customs, and they were about to go back to Scotland, but he never got back. So that was a big thing, you know, but it happened, and then we just moved on, as kids do. And you probably very quickly later, I had a new best friend. Whenever I was growing up, we were in the local Girl Guides, brownies and whatever, but it was all really, I didn't know if there were Catholic Girl Guides. We were never involved, we never had them over, or we never went to them. So I wasn't aware if there were any troops in Newry. The first time I actually interacted with another school, because we didn't even go to different schools, was whenever I was playing netball for the high, and we were playing Our Ladies, and it was a big thing going up to Our Ladies. And I remember meeting this cracker girl. She was lovely, and we hit it off really well. And I remember thinking it was a pity but we couldn't get together more often. I think we would have been good friends, but she went to a Catholic school and I went to the Protestant school, and that was it. And I remember I looked forward to the return match when they came to us, and I sought her out and with a bit of crack, but that was it. Yeah, there was no integration then, which is a pity. Whenever you were really young, you weren't allowed down the town on your own, but as you got a bit older, we were allowed to go down the street maybe Saturday or Friday after school. But there were places, we were only allowed up as far as McAvoy's in Monaghan Street, and it was the post office in Hill Street. Although Connor's Chemist was actually past the post office, and I remember I did sneak down the odd time, and I don't know what I feared most, my mother's wrath or a bomb going off. Don't know which would have been worse. But yes, we were only allowed certain places, where mum and dad felt would be safe. There are places in Newry I have heard of, but I couldn't take you to. We stayed to our side of town, mainly because that's where all our friends lived. And again, mum and dad, they didn't know anybody anywhere else anyway, and they felt maybe we were safer. And it was grand. We didn't need to go anywhere else anyway, because as I say, our friends lived nearby, or if they lived maybe Bestbrook or something like that, then we were always taken there. We did have members of security forces live beside us, and many a time we got up, and then a few days later we heard that, you know, maybe a policeman, the family is gone, just classed as a moonlight flit in those days. And you know, we did have members of security forces live beside us, and unfortunately some of them were killed, and you were very aware of that as a child, and it was a big thing. It was your neighbour. One night, it was a weekend night, and we were sitting watching TV probably, and we heard this almighty noise, and it was bang, 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 and we actually thought maybe one of our neighbours was being shot. And because we lived in a bungalow, we went and ran into the hall. We hunkered down in the hallway because we had more walls to protect us, and there we were lying, and then remembered the dog was in the kitchen. So I crawled to save the dog and got the dog down with us, because we were aware that, you know, we were Protestants, and if one of our neighbours was being shot, and we began to make stories up of what could happen and if they came for us. So we stayed in the hall for a long, long time. And in those days, there was no internet. There was no way of finding out what was happening. So I can't remember if it was phone calls or what we did. We found out then that it was actually the UDR base in the Belfast Road in Newry was being attacked. So, well, obviously the noise had stopped, and very glad you come back in, you get the kettle on, you get a cup of tea. But I remember going to bed that night and getting up the next morning, and I'd slept. It didn't affect me at all. It was just probably a wee adventure, maybe. But things like that didn't happen too often, thank goodness. My parents didn't shield us from it. We were obviously made aware of what was happening, and you know, if something came on the news, but we listened to the news, maybe it was discussed. But we didn't discuss, we weren't encouraged to discuss it outside the house. Yeah, I remember one morning getting up, it was obviously August, and she said to me, "Did you hear the bin lids last night?" And I went, "No." And she says, "Did you sleep through those?" And I went, "Yes." And I goes, "What bin lids?" And she said, "It was for interment." And I went, "Oh." And that was it. And I didn't know what interment was, but it was interment, it was bin lids, and that was it. I was a bit older whenever the hunger strike was happening, and that was the one time I do remember not being comfortable. And you either went to school and you came home, or you went to work and you came home. You kept your thoughts to yourselves, and you really just kept your head down, and you were quiet and you got on with it. We were frightened. We just didn't know if we were going to be targeted or whatever. It just was a scary time. I remember that. We were very happy and to go where we needed to go. If we needed a doctor, a dentist, optician, we just went to what the best we could get, I suppose. And I know religion never came into it. We just went to, whenever we moved, we didn't know which dentist to use, which doctor to use. So we would have taken advice on friends, and that's how we got all our opticians and whatever. And I think most of them were Catholics, but that never even crossed our minds. This was a service we needed, and we took it. And we just shopped with whatever shops supplied the goods and were cheapest. None of my immediate family live in Newry anymore, but that is just consequences. Jobs, marriage has taken them away. We were the only ones that really moved for no real reason except we found a house. The rest were all outside sources. One thing that always makes me laugh, there are places in Newry that I haven't been to, and Camla was one of them. But whenever we hadn't moved to Banbridge that long, there was the Ulster Says No protest, and they didn't want anybody to go to work that day. But we were living in Banbridge, working in Newry. We were trying to get to our work, and we had an awful job getting to work. It took us to about 10:30 in the morning, should have been there for 8:30. And we were going through all the back roads that we could do, and we ended up in Camla. And I'd never been to Camla before, but I remember saying, "I've never felt so safe in all my life. I'll make it to work this morning," which I did. A wee bit late, but I made it. I know with living in Newry and the experiences I had in Newry, I certainly don't feel like a victim. I know we were very, very blessed. We didn't lose any family members through shootings or bombings, and I know people who did. But they, to me, are the victims, not me. We just had, not idyllic, but a very nice childhood, growing up with lovely friends and lovely memories, and it was a nice place to live. maybe looking back now, it wasn't that normal. You know, mortar bombs and hiding in the hall, afraid, going to save a dog. You know, things are different now, and so maybe this is normal and that wasn't normal, but it was all I knew, and because of the way we were brought up and protected, it was normal.